Part 5. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. Okay, so you know how a lot of comedians, when they're 10 years past their peak, they stop telling jokes and instead just get up on stage and do political rants at the audience? Well, every comic who does that wishes he was George Carlin, a comedian who died in 2006 and who, towards the end, did some specials with a lot of old man ranting.
The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have owners. They own you.
In one of Carlin's famous old man rants, he talks about how America is owned by wealthy business interests. This bit culminates in the phrase,
"It's a big club, and you ain't in it."
That line, "It's a big club and you ain't in it," has become a popular conspiracist slogan. You see it every day in online conspiracy spaces. It captures conspiracists' core feeling of exclusion, the feeling of being an outsider to political power, speculating frantically about what the insiders are up to. It's interesting that conspiracists like this line so much, because George Carlin was not a conspiracist. On a political talk show, he name-dropped Noam Chomsky and Howard Zinn, both thinkers I'd consider reasonable leftists.
Howard Zinn and Noam Chomsky, those people aren't on TV because they have intellects and they're dissenters.
On another talk show, Carlin was accused of being a conspiracy theorist, and he responded,
You don't need a formal conspiracy when interests converge.
That is not conspiracist talk, but conspiracists claim Carlin as one of their own because he communicates in populist language, and populism is inherently ambiguous. It's always open to conspiracist interpretation. Let's define populism as the general idea that we, the common people, are in opposition to some they, the establishment elite. This is extremely vague, and that's the problem. Populism can be leftist, it can be fascist, it can be liberal, centrist, communist. Most political ideologies today identify in some way with the people in opposition to elites. It's why a lot of American politicians put on this folksy charade. You know what I'm talking about. I grew up in a small town. I work in a farm factory. I piss in a bucket.
I grew up castrating hogs on an Iowa farm.
Just ask the single mom from Swing State who sits around the kitchen table every night castrating hogs, or whatever it is you people do.
Are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans?
I mean, I guess it works, or they wouldn't do it. Everyone wants to brand themselves as anti-establishment. The problem, though, is anti-establishment is not, in and of itself, an actual political agenda, as any successful revolutionary will tell you. Because what happens after the revolution? You have to create a new establishment. And then, all your anti-establishment rhetoric gets a little awkward. It's a problem Mao solved with the ingeniously Machiavellian idea of a second revolution. Now, if you don't know what kind of establishment you want and don't have a realistic plan for how to get it, well, then you're just a complainer like George Carlin, who was influenced by leftists but whose politics was basically defeatist.
It will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got.
Don't vote, don't revolt, don't expect things to get better. The system's rigged, just sit back and laugh. And I get that. I'm something of a professional complainer myself. But the problem is, while we're sitting back and laughing, people with an agenda are getting things done. A populist agenda is defined by where the line is drawn between us and them. Who are the people and who are the elites? What is the big club that you ain't in? And this is a matter of life and death, so you better get this right. Populism escalates into violence when tensions in society reach a breaking point. Always a risk in a culture lacking an established ritual of sending a sin-laden goat out into the desert once.
Oh wait. Somebody said something in YouTube chat. Where was it? I've been thinking about this for years now. How can you be anti-establishment when you are the establishment? It's one of the ingeniouses for conservative propaganda of the deep state. The nice thing about the deep state is that the deep state is everything and it's ever present at all points in time, no matter what. no matter what you do, the deep state is still there. It's why they talk and fixate so much on like the unelected bureaucrats. It's so that they can talk about the fact that even when they are in all branches of government, like they already were when Trump was president first time around, right? They can still say that there is an establishment that they're fighting against, even when they are the establishment through and through, because it's a deep state that's unseeable, unknowable, unverifiable, but it's just there controlling everything at all points in time.
A year. Now, I'm a liberal social democrat. I'd prefer to improve society through democratic reforms, but I'm aware my libcuck opinions are not popular at the moment, because the right doesn't want reform. They want to punish minorities. And the left doesn't want to vote. I was going to say they want to smash, but they don't even want to do that. They want to theorize the inevitability of smashing, as they've been doing for almost 2 centuries now. So one way or another, the people are out for blood. The question is, whose blood's it gonna be this time? I'm sure CEOs are a little nervous right now, but probably not that nervous. There's reliable ways to escape the guillotine. Socialism always has to compete with nationalism to channel populist resentment. And socialism has a critical weakness, which is that it's just a little too intellectual. Socialists try to create class consciousness. That is, they try to build a working class we opposed to a capitalist they. Marxist theory is not conspiracist because the line between working class and capitalist is defined by an economic relation, not by inclusion or exclusion from a conspiracy. But that's a subtle distinction that's hard to communicate to normal people. And if you use weird jargon like bourgeois and dialectic, you sound like a creepy ideologue. So popular socialists, like Bernie Sanders or sort of George Carlin, don't say those words. They say the 1%. They say it's a big club and you ain't in it. That language emotionally resonates with people, but the subtlety is lost in translation. Most people find conspiracism more intuitive than dialectical materialism. Lord have mercy. Just explain to Joe Rogan that it's simply a non-idealist inversion of Hegelianism. How difficult is that? For conspiracists, the belief in a they creates a we. The line between us and them is not based on class, it's based on the conspiracy. They, the insiders, are in on it. We, the outsiders, are not. Conspiracist Gary Allen says, unless you are an insider, you are a victim. Whether you are a multimillionaire or a pauper, you have an enormous amount at stake. So conspiracism potentially unites everyone from billionaires to the unemployed in a single we against the cabal, the deep state, the globalists, the international bankers, the radical left, the reptilians. Just pick a convenient scapegoat. Who cares, right? It's
Wait. Quick pit stop for Sliker meme.
Now we're gonna hop into a crazy conversation
Uh-oh.
that I just had with my community.
No, it goes to your PayPal? Yeah, GG!
Yes.
Corrupted Somali scam! Somali scam! No way!
No, hold on, let me explain myself. Can I explain myself?
Look, you know what? I don't even need to question. I would know 1,000,000,000% this guy's not scamming. I bet billion% he's not scamming. 1,000,000,000% he's not scamming. Wallah, I bet.
Wallah, I'm not scamming, but optics-wise, it looks crazy, right? Like, just looking at it, it looks crazy. Yo,
It's
guys,
fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's
No,
fine.
but can I
it's
explain
fine.
it to you?
I would not even question it. I would not question it. I don't.
I get it. I know you won't. You was just joking. But let me just explain, because I know some people in your community, wallah, they want to donate.
Oh, wait. This
But they
sounds
just want to know, yo, Q, where's this money going?
retarded. Never mind. I thought this was going to be way more entertaining. Okay. We have an Asmongold clip.
Second chances. I think right now, a lot of people second chances. I think right now, I'm really curious to see if they're going to unban Destiny. I am.
I mean, to be fair, was Adin Ross really that bad, guys?
Because if they unbanned...
Holy shit.
There is no universe where Adin Ross didn't do something worse than Destiny.
Well,
literally no observable universe in which Destiny was worse than Adin Ross. we'll see what happens. Yep, we'll see what happens. Not with a pending court case. I think that Twitch might not unban him for that reason. They're concerned that basically, and this is the issue, is that I think that anybody who's had like legal trouble or legal issues, that kind of person probably will still get in trouble. Or will probably still stay banned. Because they just don't want to have that for liability and lawsuit's sake. But other than that, I could see a lot of people getting unbanned, and this to be a what do you call it? This to be a normal thing. Let me go back over it. Somebody said Destiny definitely did worse. What did he do? Like, because I don't even know. What did Destiny do?
Wait, are my construction robots taking damage?
Yeah, this is
just for
about
being...
something else. What did Destiny do that was so bad? Because I'm not even aware of this.
No
so if there's
is.
something I'm not aware of, then I'd want to know.
Why was Adin banned? Who the fuck knows?
I mean, you typically don't comment on ongoing litigation, but revenge porn? Well, okay, so then he didn't do it.
Hey, it's true.
Because in America, you have the presumption of innocence.
True.
So because it's an ongoing litigation, that means that Destiny at this current point, same with Luigi, is technically right now an innocent
basically
person.
Luigi. True.
You are innocent until proven guilty.
What a king. Then we have fears from our good friend.
Do you not think this was going to happen? You act like there isn't a rightward shift. No, I see that.
Is he crying? I'm just kidding.
No, I do see that. Look, people will say, Hasan, you're biased. Hasan, you're woke. Hasan, you're gay. Whatever the fuck, okay? I just don't want other content creators to get fucking destroyed by this kind of toxic behavior.
Since when the fuck? Oh my god. He's so fucking cringe. When has he ever given a fuck about how anything has ever affected any other content creator ever in his entire life? Oh my god, seriously?
Okay? That's it. Like, even beyond the Adolf Hitler associations, okay? I think outside of like being woke, there's an environment of toxicity associated with these guys that are like serial harassers, serial doxers, incredibly toxic.
To be clear right now, while he is correct on that, the largest community that does this right now, and like the communities that we're involved in, is the one that Hasan works with. It is that crazy leftist, the one that we read the article on, the Zay Squirrel person, all of the weird pro-pally people, the people that are calling CPS on Ethan Klein, the people that are like giving their implicit approval to all of this, like Denims, like these people are all part of like the community that Hasan is a part of. So I don't know. The other communities are definitely bad too, but I would say that you could argue Hasan's is worse because he's probably the largest one, but...
And it completely rips apart the remaining semblance of community that Twitch has had as opposed to other platforms like YouTube.
Oh my god.
The Adin Ross community was huge, but has also changed as people like the FaZe Boys have grown, as they all came from the same community, but they have different viewers and stances now. It's whether Adin wants to entertain a Jason viewer or just edgy bullshit. Yeah, that's what I worry about, though, because it's so alluring to be edgy because it's like the most...
Are they organized or is it random crazy people? All like the pro-pally stuff online, that's all super organized. They're very organized and very coordinated. That's why their mods are like the mods of like the entirety of like Reddit. Like they're like professional mods who like all these people will moderate. Fuck, that's annoying. All these people will moderate, you know, like 30 different subreddits, and they're all like on point in their messaging, and Hasan will say things in his Discord knowing that it'll get carried to these communities, knowing that they'll be carried to other places. Like they're all like very careful and very intentional how they do it all.
It's the most like bottom of the barrel content. It's so hacky. You have two directions that you can go in. You can be a positive force and try not to be like as racist as you once were, or you can just be unshackled and unrestricted and be as fucking racist as possible.
Conspiracism, facts don't matter. This makes conspiracism a billionaire's best friend, at least a Gentile billionaire. It's how real estate mogul Donald Trump and world's richest tech oligarch Elon Musk were able to convince the people that they, like us, are somehow outsiders to the establishment elite. Because when they say the elite, they mean the woke elite, the DEI elite. They mean minorities. For nationalists like Trump, conspiracism is not just useful, it's essential. Nationalism constructs a native, ethnic, or racial we opposed to a foreign, invasive, or degenerate they. The populist version of nationalism, national socialism, if you will, is the idea that the native, ethnic, or racial common people are opposed by a foreign, invasive, or degenerate elite. And in a country that's not literally ruled by a foreign colonial power, the only way to support that idea is with conspiracy theories. So now is probably the time to unpin the anti-Semitism discussion that I've been pinning this whole video. I put it off to avoid a comments section overly choked with claims that anti-Semite is a slur designed to silence truth seekers. Another favorite conspiracist slogan goes, "To learn who rules over you, simply find out who you are not allowed to criticize."
Kids in wheelchairs.
BTS fans? In Jewish Space Lasers, Mike Rothschild, no relation to the wealthy banking family, but, you know, good luck explaining that to the There Are No Coincidences brigade. Mike Rothschild says, quote, "Almost all conspiracy theories are rooted in anti-Semitism, and almost all anti-Semitism is rooted in conspiracy theories." For research on this video, I made an alt account on x.com, and even I was surprised by just how fast the app pipelined me straight to Hitler. And when I say Hitler, I don't mean Hitler as metonymy for bigotry in general, I mean Adolf Hitler, Reich Chancellor of Germany from 1933 until the bullet hit his brain.
Hitler came to power, and within 6 years, Germany became the wealthiest economy in the world. How did this happen, Brother Joshua? Don't even trip, I got you. Hitler implemented 2 laws to make this happen. I could tell you about them personally, but I'd rather have a Jewish rabbi prove my point.
If you think about
Holy
it,
shit.
doesn't disagreeing with the pro-Hitler rabbi make you the real anti-Semite?
Maybe.
Andrew Tate finally said, "The Matrix is the Jews." Thread. Did you know Kim Jong-un and his family are Jewish? Oh look. Passionate graphic designer Dylan Lewis Monroe made a shareable, social media-friendly summary of the protocols of the Elders of Zion. Convenient. These are some of the less offensive posts. I can't even show you most of it. While I was working on this video, I went to a European war museum that had a bunch of historic Nazi propaganda, and honestly, some of the stuff I was seeing on Twitter was actually worse. If you don't believe me, I did screenshot evidence. There is so much Nazi propaganda on my phone. Yeah, it's mostly Nazi propaganda. Oh, that was a nice dinner. Conspiracists are constantly bickering among themselves about the answer to the question, who is they? With many preferring elaborate euphemisms like globalists, elitists, Frankists, Sabbateans, communists, deep state, Zionists, oligarchists, Rothschild bankers. And if you call out the euphemisms, the conspiracist says, "Wow, did you just assume I was talking about all Jews when I said the deep state Rothschild Frankists?" Doesn't that make you the real anti-Semite? But now that hate speech restrictions are being lifted on many platforms, a lot of them have started encouraging each other to just say Jews. Now it has to be said that a lot of these people are using Israel's crimes against Palestine as a pretext. And those crimes are real. And the Trump administration really is citing anti-Semitism to justify crackdowns on protests in universities. But it certainly doesn't help that conspiracists are exploiting the situation to promote Hitlerian Jew hatred. So why is conspiracism a funnel that leads to Hitler? Well, a bunch of reasons. One, Hitler was a conspiracy theorist. People don't usually categorize him that way, but he was. My struggle is full of ramblings about how, like, the Jews control the Freemasons and they're gonna make us all speak Esperanto. I assume conspiracists must find this relatable. Just kidding. They don't read. Kids these days can't even be bothered to read Mein Kampf. Sad. 2, conspiracism is about scapegoating, and in Western culture, Jews are a traditional scapegoat. The Jews stole this from you. Israel took this from us. No, our beautiful dead wife, he's taken by Israel. Oh, Hasan, the Jews are to blame for my attraction to minors. Now that is how you scape a goat. 3, Jews are associated with a bunch of other things conspiracists are obsessed with, like Hollywood and finance. Nationalist conspiracism needs to identify an outgroup as the elite, and it's especially the association with money that makes Jews the favorite target. Because the world revolves around money, and money is mysterious. Who controls the money? The association between Jews and finance began in medieval Europe, where Jews were second-class citizens prohibited from practicing most trades. One exception was money lending, which Christians couldn't practice because the church condemned usury. So monarchs and nobles would hire a so-called court Jew to handle their finances. Most famously, Meyer Amschel Rothschild, who rose from a Jewish ghetto in Frankfurt and whose 5 sons started businesses across Europe, creating a banking dynasty that, in the 19th century, made the Rothschilds the richest private family in the world. So there is some grain of truth here, but as usual, it does not correspond to the things conspiracists are saying. The Rothschilds do not control every country's central bank, they do not own the government and media, they have nowhere near the influence of today's top oligarchs, and no, they do not eat babies. A lot of people feel that there's something occult and unnatural about finance itself. It's making money from money, which seems like evil alchemy, black magic. And this should not be conflated with reasonable criticism of finance capitalism. The conspiracist accusation is of witchery, in that the Rothschilds intentionally sunk the Titanic to create the Federal Reserve in a secret meeting on Jekyll Island, which may or may not have been attended by Satan himself, and so on. There's a saying that anti-Semitism is the socialism of fools. It appeals to people who sense that something is wrong with our economy, that money is somehow corrupting politics and media, but they don't know enough about any of those things to criticize it intelligently. Nationalists object to the elite, not just as a power over us, but as a foreign power over us. Their complaint is that the elite are not people like us. Socialist intellectuals tend to be very optimistic about transcending gut-level blood-and-soil nationalism by redirecting attention to intellectual class analysis. But anti-Semitism is the socialism of fools, and there's a lot of fools. Leftism, unfortunately, does not inoculate people against foolishness. Socialist revolutions are always at risk of turning nationalist. Stalin diverged from Marx, declaring socialism in one country, and despite his role in defeating Hitler, he eventually went on to carry out his own little purge of rootless defeating Hitler.
Oof, why would she even include that? Jeez.
He eventually went on to carry out his own little purge of rootless cosmopolitans, that is, Jews. Fools of the world unite. In a video I made years ago about... hold on. Capitalism. I suggested that David Icke's Reptilians could be ironically appropriated as a metaphor for the ruling class, like in the movie They Live. Some people criticize this as anti-Semitic, and I've come to basically agree with that criticism. To be clear, David Icke believes in literal extraterrestrial reptilians. It's not intended as a metaphor, though Icke does say anti-Semitic stuff all the time. I mean, he says Hitler was a Rothschild. See Appendix 2. Hitler was a Rothschild. But reptilian overlords, as a metaphor, imply elites who are alien, who are outsiders. And that makes the metaphor inherently suggestive of conspiracist bigotry. Anti-Semitism is the archetype of this kind of bigotry, though Jews are by no means the only targets. LGBT people are likewise often accused of wielding a powerful agenda due to the disproportionate prevalence of gay people in arts and entertainment. Again, grain of truth, but it's due largely to discrimination in most other industries and not due to a conspiracy. Conspiracists invoke queer-coded villainy in media, like the capital dandies in the Hunger Games, to insinuate that the establishment elites are gay. This has nothing to do with any kind of Marxist intellectualizing about material conditions. Populist bigots don't want equality. They want to be ruled by people they identify with, by people like them. Hatred of an outsider unites people across economic classes in the shared community of a lynch mob. So bigotry in general is useful to politicians, but conspiracist bigotry is particularly useful because it empowers them to continue railing against the establishment elite, the source of all our problems, even after they've ascended to the throne. Richard Nixon, when he was literally the president, was endlessly conspiracist about the liberal establishment.
The president is the enemy. The establishment is the enemy. The professors are the enemy.
It's ironic, considering Nixon perpetrated the most famous real conspiracy in American history, but I actually don't think that's an accident. I think conspiracist politicians are actually more likely to perpetrate actual conspiracy.
Because everyone else has already done it first, and if you think that's what people do, then that's what you should do.
Because their belief in a conspiracy, or their followers' belief in a conspiracy, justifies plotting a counter-conspiracy. Donald Trump really did conspire to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Stop the Steal was a counter-conspiracy which people supported on the basis of a false conspiracy theory that Biden stole the election. And now, with Trump in power once again, do we expect the right to turn on him when things do not go well?
If I drive into this, do I die?
Of course not. They'll keep digging into further layers of the deep state, looking for new scapegoats and new conspiracies to externalize the blame. That is, until this wave of fascism crashes and recedes, and then suddenly they'll deny they ever supported Trump, or they'll claim the Illuminati made them do it. That Trump was a Rothschild. No responsibility will be taken, nothing will be learned. You know—
Wait, are the planets limited in size? Or can you just drop at different places and then it spawns a new instance every time?
I've often thought that if you simply translated Hitler's speeches into English and updated a few details, that Americans would completely buy it. A few months ago, that thought was proven right. Hitler's AI-translated speeches go viral on TikTok, with one video topping 1 million views in troubling trend. Is this what you thought the future would be? Using AI to bring Hitler back?
Yep.
I'm sure they're being normal about this over on the conspiracy subreddit. Let's take a look. Hitler may not have been what we've been told he was. Here we go.
Oh, there's like when leftists got that Osama bin Laden fatwa or whatever.
This is an AI translated speech by Hitler, where I expected to hear him babble incoherence, but he was actually spot on about a lot of issues. He calls out the elite banking class, the stock market, the illusory two-party system, the globalists, an outsider minority forming a nation within a nation, hyperinflation, etc. Blamed the Jews for everything. The poster then pastes what appears to be a ChatGPT summary of conspiracy theories Hitler believed, and then declares, promoting communist ideals, degenerate ideals, liberal ideals about sexuality and gender roles, undermining Christianity? Guys, it's the same shit happening today. The post concludes by pointing out that Nazis burned books about transsexualism, and therefore that Hitler was,
based.
Dare I say it, based? I think we all owe Hitler an apology. Guys, I started out this video trying to be nice, but this post has spent the last of my patience. It's just so stupid.
It's not even that it's stupid, it's that it's disappointing because they're so close to getting the point. It's like, wait a second, guys, I just found this post by Hitler, and it actually sounds like he's saying a lot of the same shit that our guy is saying right now. And it's like, oh shit, well, what does that mean? That must mean Hitler was also based. Wait a second. Wait, you went the wrong way with that one.
How can you be this stupid? I'm not asking you to be an intellectual.
Wait, what do these lines mean on this
I'm not asking you to
map?
write a thesis on fucking Wittgenstein.
Is this where the snake eats
I'm
your
asking you
shit,
to
or
be
what?
10% smarter than the absolute dumbest it is possible for a human to be.
Worm territory, gotcha.
It
Lisan
boggles my
Al-Gaib,
mind.
oh shit.
How susceptible to propaganda you are. It's not like someone tricked you by giving you a transcript without telling you who wrote it. They told you it was Hitler. And when you agreed with it anyway, did you question your own judgment? No. The first thought through that infinitesimally tiny brain of yours was that the mainstream media has lied to us about Hitler. There's a reason they only let us see him speaking German. I honestly can't believe it. I cannot believe how goddamn dumb you are. It is actually astounding. Mom needs a Xanax. Part 6. I can't think of a section for this title, Doctor. I'm too depressed. This is some very low vibrational crochet I'm doing here. Like, what am I even making? Like a pot holder for deformed pots? I am weaving a web of truth, okay? I don't want to hear any crap about it in the comments. So I suspect the main criticism of this video from Conspiracists will be that I didn't debunk anything.
She didn't.
And
not a single one.
My goal has been to analyze a way of thinking, not to, litigate the evidence of JFK Jr. living in secret tunnels beneath Denver International Airport. I don't know what he's doing down there, and I'm not interested in finding out. The problem with debunking is it's not an efficient use of time. Some nerd online came up with an idea called Brandolini's Law. The amount of energy needed to refute bullshit is an order of magnitude bigger than that needed to produce it. Conspiracists can invent 100 conspiracies.
That's out of date now, because it's 2 to 3 orders of magnitude.
In the time it takes to debunk one. And
the amount of speed at which the current admin is moving is just unbelievable.
Even then, they'll invent a conspiracy to explain the lack of evidence for the one you just debunked. Conspiracism is a parody of critical thinking that empowers people to believe whatever they want to believe and to dismiss anything challenging or inconvenient. Has a disaster happened that's awkward for your politics? Just say it was a hoax. Are other conspiracists inciting violence? Just say it's controlled opposition. To a conspiracist politician, every lost election is a rigged election.
True.
And there's usually a very selective and politically convenient understanding of what even counts as a conspiracy. Like conspiracists who think survivors of school shootings advocating firearms regulation are a conspiracy. But the billion-dollar industry lobbying to prevent that regulation, that's fine. That's not a conspiracy. If you spend long enough immersed in this kind of discourse, you start to lose your grip on the concept of truth. After months of conspiracy research, I feel a withered sense of reality, even as a detached and
Epstein was actually helping a bunch of the rich elite in this country rape kids. Unironically. He was connected to so many wealthy people that he was helping. But
all right, let's go ahead and move on to the.
But not Donald Trump,
So
though.
how do you know this?
Not Donald Trump, though.
Donald's closest friend.
When Epstein says that he was Donald's closest friend, now you might think that you are making a point here, but what you unwittingly fell into was actually the conspiracy of the conspiracy to make Epstein seem like he was Trump's friend. These are actually all deep fakes. And so anytime you hear Epstein say he was actually Trump's close friend, that is actually not true, which is why Biden killed him in jail when Biden was the president during Biden's administration. He died while Trump, was the president. But that's because the deep state did it when Trump was the president. See how we almost made a mistake there, but we always have a way to explain any possible thing that happens, no matter what. Thank God. Whew.
So I need the Donald. Just give me Donald.
hostile observer. So what do we do with these people? Can they be reasoned with at all? The answer is usually no, and that's scary because democracy depends on us being able to deliberate. When people can't communicate, conflicts escalate into violence. But there's also a personal cost to this. The subreddit QAnon Casualties has thousands of posts from people whose families and relationships have been torn apart by one person's obsessive conspiracism. People talk about losing someone to this, the way we talk about drug addiction. It's like conspiracy research completely takes over some people's lives.
Yeah, it's like that superset, and I've seen this happen to people in my fans/friends of mine who I guess have watched my stuff, and then I see the same types of thing pop up on my subreddit where you'll get somebody who is like a normal human being, and then one day, I don't know if this happened to you guys, one day you get that message where they're like, "Hey, have you ever looked into this thing? Isn't this kind of weird?" And you're like, "Oh no." And you're like, yeah, listen, I know it looks weird, but like, it's not what you think. Like, this ain't it. And they're like, well, I don't know. It's just like a weird thing. I'm not saying, obviously I don't believe in it all. And I know there's a lot of like crazy people here. Okay. And like 99% of what Candace Owens or whatever says is like crazy. Okay. But like this one thing is like really weird. And that inevitably in 3 to 6 months, that person will be gone. They will be on maximum whatever the fuck crazy planet of believing whatever insane shit, and then it's over.
It becomes the only thing they care about, the only thing they talk about, and it changes their personality. And I'm sure people who know someone like that will ask, how can I save my loved one? And the only honest answer I can give is, I don't know. This is not a video on how to blue pill your crazy uncle. I think it's like addiction. You can't force someone to change if
you just have to be there for them and be loving and supportive and hope that you can catch them when they come down. But the issue is it's not like addiction, in that addiction is generally either self-destructive or when it becomes destructive to other people, you can cut them out of your life. But it's different when your political persuasion is destructive, because now you're voting on it and through legal, like imagine if there was a guy who was addicted to crack in your family, but he also happened to be the guy like driving you to school every day or something. And it's like, okay, well, this just got a lot more horrible.
they don't want to change. You just can't force feed someone blue pills. That's what we have 5G towers for. But to even have a chance of getting people out, we should at least understand what gets them in. And I do have a few final thoughts about that. Why do some people get addicted to conspiracy theories? I think conspiracism must fulfill some deep psychological needs.
Religion.
Need one is relief from fear.
Wow.
I'm sorry, we're in another list within a list. To understand the structure of this video, please consult this diagram. Fear is an inherent part of politics.
Yeah, whatever happened to that? I thought 5G was going to make us all trans or some shit too. Where did that ever go to? You're describing literally all of my friends, known since childhood, and all of my family. You say be loving and supportive, but they're so aggressive and self-aggrandizing. I mean, that's one of the things I think that makes probably addiction hard to deal with as well, is that those people can also be very aggressive. The political stuff feels different, though, because it's a bit more sober. Like, if somebody is literally strung the fuck out and they start going off on you, like, at least you can point to a substance that's destroying their mind. You're like, listen, dude, you're being unhinged right now, and I don't appreciate it. But, like, you can kind of understand, like, the dude is strung out on drugs. But when somebody's literally lost to, like, the Trump cult shit, and, yeah, like, people say this online all the time to me, like, you have to be more patient with them, you shouldn't be mean to them, and it's like, okay, sure, I can try that, but like the other side is literally accusing my side of being part of a pedophile sex cult, like transing all the children, using transsexual drag queens, funded with money being stolen from and funded by Tren de Aragua and Chinese meth labs that are killing our country and like murdering babies. All of my politicians are raping and like, it's like, you're asking for a lot there. And then if I make fun of some shit on the conservative side, like saying like the Hot Wheels joke for the fucking loser. Who even is Hot Wheels? Is it Abbott or whatever? Now it's like beyond the pale. Like, give me a break. I'm sorry. This is fucking retarded. Like you're asking for probably an inhuman or an unreasonable amount of patience from an average person. Average person, this is like, you'd have to have a specialist in counseling for people who are fucked up mentally, you know?
There's no limit to how horrible humans can be to each other, and it's very scary. I personally am terrified of politics at the moment, so I get it. But why does conspiracism soothe fear? It seems counterintuitive. The idea that the world is controlled by an evil crypto aristocracy?
Ooh, because it explains everything, and because of their heart of hearts, they don't fucking believe it. That's why. In their heart of hearts, they don't believe this bullshit. And they don't. That's why they're not afraid, really, of mass censorship or of Trump coming, or I'm sorry, of Biden coming after them, or of the whatever bullshit. They don't. At the end of the day, deep in their heart of hearts, that's why when you start asking people to bet on shit, depending on what you're talking about, the tune changes a lot. That's why you get people who talk about how evil Big Pharma is, and now they're all on fucking Ozempic. Why would you trust that? Like, if there was ever, imagine, I'm plotting the downfall of the United States. I have two ways that I can do it. I got a vaccine that requires you to inject a fucking needle in your arm by a nurse, and it's probably going to make you feel like shit for a day or two. Yeah, that's it. And it gives you immunity towards something that's basically like a bad cold, or maybe just a mediocre cold, depending on who you are. Or I have a drug that I can inject into you that gives you magical properties to make you not hungry or not exhibit addictive behavior. that will make you lose weight. Like, which drug would I be more likely to poison to mind control society? Let's do the vaccine one. I feel like more people will take that. Like, like, again, even if you were designing conspiracies, like, it doesn't make sense. Wouldn't you poison the Ozempic? Wouldn't you go down the Wegovy or whatever? Or wouldn't you poison those drugs? Like, it's whatever.
Doesn't sound very soothing. Like, are these people masochists? Do they unconsciously want to be dominated by the Illuminati? Now that I say it out loud, it actually does sound kind of hot. Okay, I get it. Michael Barquin says, the conspiracy theorist's view is both frightening and reassuring. Reassuring because it promises a world that is meaningful rather than arbitrary. So even if it's scary to think the world is controlled by Satanists, it's also a relief, because it means that everything happens for a reason. It's like religion in that way. Many people find it comforting to imagine that God has a plan for us, even if that plan involves earthquakes and tsunamis. The Lord works in mysterious ways. I personally do not find this comforting at all. I do not understand the archetypal appeal of the punishing father.
You know, it's like daddy arrived and he's taking his belt off.
But so many people seem to be into it. So, it's a thing.
There has to be a point at which dad comes home. Yeah, that's right. And he's pissed. Dad is pissed.
Need 2 is inflated self-esteem. There's something inherently grandiose about the whole conspiracist persona. Conspiracy researchers or investigators claim to have privileged access to secret knowledge, thanks to their bravely defiant, Galileo-like willingness to ask dangerous questions the brainwashed sheeple dare not entertain.
True.
It's such a teenage mindset, right?
No.
I remember thinking this way when I was 16. I alone question the system. Everyone else is a programmed sheep who does as they're told. But I am burdened with an inner darkness that lets me see the truth. That high school is a prison. Conspiracists take this narcissism even further. It's not enough for them to be Socrates and Sherlock Holmes. They also have to be Jesus Christ, some kind of persecuted martyr heroically fighting the forces of evil in the information war. It's like Don Quixote, the book we all pretend to have read about an aging noble who reads chivalric fantasy novels all day and deludes himself into thinking he's a knight. For conspiracists, the persona of investigator gives them a noble purpose. It makes them important. But instead of giants...
How the fuck do I combat the both sides arguments? Literally, every single debate with normies devolves into everything is bad, all parties suck. Well, nowadays, it's actually one of the best things about this administration is you no longer have to worry about the both sides arguments because this admin has gone so far beyond the fucking pale that now you can just say, like, oh, both sides do this? Can you give me anything? I think I've even already started to do this in debates and they didn't have any answers. No, they haven't, because I would ask, like, can you name one thing that's as bad as this thing? And one guy said, like, something to do with wokeness or affirmative action. I was like, okay, well, that got overturned under Biden, so that doesn't count. And then I think somebody tried to say, like any example they give, it'll be like things that didn't happen or didn't work. And it's like, okay, and now there's even more examples. What is the similarity to... literally listing or naming law firms in an executive order that you're going to go after because they prosecuted crimes against you in the past or investigated. Like, there's nothing. There are so many things now in the past 2 months. The authorization of the Alien Enemies Act to deport people without due process. Like, what is even remotely comparable to this? There have just been like so many. There have been so many things. Dismissing charges against somebody just until after an election, the Eric Adams stuff. Getting those law firms, dismissing the executive orders once they'd agreed. And there's a second law firm that's done this now to give $40 to $100 million worth of pro bono work donated to your administration. Something that's equivalent to all the times Trump threatened to cancel FEMA from places like California. He made these quid pro quos. California had to do something to qualify for FEMA stuff. Suing media companies because you didn't like the polls they did or you didn't like there's just nothing. There are so many things now that you can't, like, they can try to make stuff up, but it's going to sound way less convincing than before. Like,
they think windmills are directed energy weapons. And instead of chivalric fantasy, their literary model is like the dystopian fiction we had to read in high school. 1984, Brave New World, Fahrenheit 451, you are here. Oh my God, how can the richest man on earth have this much of a persecution complex? There's not enough ketamine in the world to fix this. Need 3 is revenged humiliation. I've noticed a lot of professional conspiracy theorists became what they are after some experience of public humiliation. David Icke was a BBC sports presenter until his 1991 appearance on the TV talk show Wogan, where he announced to the British public that he was the son of God and prophesied a plague of tidal waves and earthquakes.
The press claim that you claim to be the son of God. Is that true?
Yes, you see, the thing is that it's quite funny, really.
The studio audience ridiculed him live on air, and afterward he says he, quote, couldn't walk down any street in Britain without being laughed at. It was a nightmare. My children were devastated because their dad was a figure of ridicule. This got him wondering who really was behind this vicious smear campaign, and his answer to that question was apparently reptilians, an idea he promoted on a lecture tour of North America, where this sort of behavior is appreciated, where nations of the world send all their maniacs. Likewise, Naomi Wolf went from...
Like, that's a good point. The world does send some crazy people here, and we don't talk enough about that, okay? Why does the world deport so many fucking lunatics to this goddamn country, all right? We need more of the people from the insane asylums and the rapist prisons and less of the political fucking commentators, okay? Because we get the worst of the worst over here. They need to stay in their own country and make their own crazy political commentary, all right?
Respected liberal feminist.
Oh, Signalgate. Yeah, that just happened, and I've already forgotten about it. Yeah, Signalgate. Give me another, an example of like an OPSEC failure that big. Like, that was then outwardly denied by everybody, and they do nothing to, like, it's just...
The Conspiracist co-host of Steve Bannon's podcast, and one of the most deranged posters in the history of X.com. No! Naomi was never the best fact-checker, but her descent fully began during a 2019 BBC radio interview about her new book on 19th century persecution of homosexuality, when the host noticed that a fundamental premise of her book was based on a misunderstanding of legal terms. Any author knows this is a nightmare scenario, but Twitter was gleefully mean about it, because Twitter is a gleefully mean place. Within a year, Naomi had become a leading COVID-19 conspiracy theorist, anti-vax, anti-mask, ranting about chemtrails and 5G towers. It was like she was taking her revenge on the concept of factuality itself.
What the heck is in our oxygen supply?
Candace Owens is a conservative pundit whose latest obsession is claiming that Judaism is
Wait, hold on. I just want to listen to her. Wait, what?
You get sentences, as I mentioned, of penal servitude for 10 or 15 years. And I found like several dozen executions, but that was, again, only looking at the Old Bailey records and the crime tables.
Several
regionally.
dozen executions.
Correct. And this corrects a misapprehension that is in every website, that the last man was executed for sodomy in Britain in 1835.
I don't think you're right about this.
She didn't mean like execute, like to do a plan or something, right? Or
one of the cases that you look at that's salient in your report is that of Thomas Silver. It says teenagers were now convicted more often. Indeed, that year, which is 1859, 14-year-old Thomas Silver was actually executed for committing sodomy. The boy was indicted for an unnatural offence. Guilty, death recorded. This is the first time the phrase unnatural offence entered the Old Bailey records. Thomas Silver wasn't executed. Death recorded. I was really surprised by this, and I looked it up. Death recorded is what's in, I think, most of these cases that you've identified as executions. It doesn't mean that he was executed. It was a category that was created in 1823 that allowed judges to abstain from pronouncing a sentence of death on any capital convict whom they considered to be a fit subject for pardon. I don't think any of the executions you've identified here actually happened.
Oh no. Well, that's a really important thing to investigate. What is your understanding of what death recorded means?
Death recorded, this is also from, I've just read you the definition of it there from the Old Bailey website. But I've got here a newspaper report about Thomas Silver, and also something from the prison records that show the date of his discharge.
The prisoner was found guilty and sentence of death was recorded.
Yeah.
But the jury recommended the prisoner to mercy on account of his youth.
See, I think this is a kind of...
Wait, is this in an essay or a tweet or a thesis, or was this already in her book?
when I found this, I didn't really know what to do with it, because I think it's quite a big problem with your argument.
Did he tell her that he was going to present her with this before the show? Because if so, he's like, this is like a annihilation ambush.
Also, it's the nature of the offence here. Thomas Silver committed an indecent assault on a 6-year-old boy.
Controlled from within by a secret sect called Frankists, who practice ritual murder and child abuse.
These pedophiles are in power. What we are referring to is a religion that is known as Frankism, which became the Thelema religion. It is the preferred religion of the elites, okay? They believe and they worship the devil.
You can't even say that this is like a modern take on blood libel, because it's literally just blood libel. Candace Owens is a blood libel promoter, but Candace once was a progressive. In high school, she experienced racist threats from classmates, influencing her to become a critic of systemic racism. Until an incident in 2016 when she launched socialautopsy.com, a platform that would archive offensive social media posts and connect them to posters' names, which would then be searchable by employers. This did not go over well on any part of the political spectrum. The consensus was that she had created essentially a doxing database, and the internet responded,
she was ahead of her
as the
time,
internet does, by doxing Candace. In other words, she was canceled. And she blamed this on progressives, saying,
I became a conservative overnight. You know, I realized that liberals were actually the racists, that liberals were actually the trolls. And then Trump is on the screen saying that.
Oh, this is like a more formal presentation of my theory of like everybody's politics is just defined by whoever bullied them last, basically. Which I still feel strongly about.
The media is lying, that CNN is fake. It all began to resonate with me because I realized that everything he was saying was true, because I knew that the media hired hitmen.
Within a year, she was denying the existence of systemic racism and claiming that Black Americans' problems stem from welfare, handouts, broken families. You know the song and dance. So it seems like Naomi Wolf and Candace Owens' feminism and anti-racism were mostly based on personal feelings of persecution. And then the moment they felt personally persecuted by progressives, they switched teams.
I became a conservative overnight.
Conspiracism appeals to people who feel humiliated because it externalizes blame and casts you as the hero fighting back.
2,000 years ago, had a guy called Jesus sat here and said these same things, you would still be laughing. It's really, really funny that we've not really moved on that much.
Of course, for everyday, non-celebrity conspiracists, the source of that humiliation might be more subtle. It could be a divorce, losing a job, or just a feeling that your life didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. You miss being young and full of hope, and you're like, who took that from me? Remember what the Jews took from you. God. At the beginning of The Matrix, Mr. Anderson's life sucks. He lives in a dirty bachelor pad, he hates his job, he's humiliated by his boss.
Either you choose to be at your desk on time from this day forth, or you choose to find yourself another job.
But then he takes the red pill and learns that his job, his boss, his taxes, all of that was just an evil simulation. A lot of men in particular feel humiliated by modernity itself. Like in Fight Club, these middle-class men feel emasculated by their white-collar jobs. Cucked. And conspiracy investigation can be a way to reclaim heroic masculinity from the comfort of your desk chair. And it is a traditionally masculine activity, though recently that's changed. A lot of women get into conspiracism via alternative health and wellness, often after frustrating or humiliating experiences with mainstream medicine, which can still be quite misogynistic. A lot of women got into QAnon because of its Me Too adjacent themes of exposing powerful sex criminals and the sort of heroic femininity of saving children. Just as conspiracism has always enabled cranks to play the intellectual without real learning, QAnon enabled women to care for children without the difficult parts of caring for children. It's childcare without the child. I understand the appeal. My children are my subscribers, like and subscribe. Universal in conspiracy discourse is a longing for vindication, this sense of, you will all see, then you'll be sorry. The ultimate conspiracist wish fulfillment fantasy is the end of the movie National Treasure, where conspiracist crank Nicolas Cage is no longer a disappointment to his father, he's vindicated to all the academics who mocked him, he's wildly rich, and Diane Kruger wants to fuck him. Yes, we all have our little fantasies. All of this is deeply pathetic. But I think it's important to understand because it explains why it's so difficult to reason people out of conspiracism. You're not just asking them to change their mind, you're asking them to give up an identity that makes them feel like they matter. And they're not going to do that until they find something else to fill the void. Need 4 is the denial of privilege. Another reason the left always loses, that's a good way to start a section, a little bit of optimism. Another reason the left always loses is the left wants you to check your privilege, and no one wants to do that. We all participate in systems of exploitation to some extent, not because we're evil, but just out of passive inertia.
I do, because I'm evil.
But acknowledging that is emotionally difficult because it makes you feel guilty, it makes your persecuted martyr persona look ridiculous, and it burdens you with obligations to other people, God forbid. Conspiracists, on the other hand, always assure you that you are at the bottom of the pyramid. You are here. This validates your pain and sense of victimhood, and it protects you from having to consider that you may in some way be involved in the oppression of other people. Morpheus tells Neo,
"The Matrix is everywhere. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth." "What truth?" "That you are a slave, Neo."
In a way, it's the ultimate white person fantasy that a wise black man tells you that it's you who's really the slave. Conspiracists don't think in terms of systems. To them, oppression is always an intentional act of evil. This makes them amazingly oblivious to more diffuse forms of power, like the power of men over women or the power of an empire over its colonies. In other words, conspiracists do not notice the clubs that they are in. Now, if you point this out, you'll be told that this is identity politics, which is a tactic the elites use to divide us.
True.
Okay, but those divides are already there. You just choose not to notice them except when it's convenient. And it blinds you to the truth about the real reasons for oppression and injustice. Most of us, in fact, exist somewhere in the middle of the pyramid. Most people watching this video benefit to some extent from a very unequal global distribution of power built on the exploitation of other people, other species, and the Earth itself. Conspiracists love their livestock metaphors, always comparing we the people to cattle and sheep. But how do we the people treat literal sheep and cattle? Not well. I notice most conspiracists are not vegan, and I'm not being preachy here. I'm not vegan either. Yes, I've seen all the sad vegan documentaries, and I agree, the way animals are treated is horrible. But it doesn't actually motivate me to stop eating meat. Why? Well, I've been introspecting about this, and I think it's because I am just not that good of a person. Not that I'm satanic. I don't slaughter animals for fun while chanting the names of demons. At least, not anymore. I've listened, and I'm learning. But I am complacent and selfish. I prioritize my own habits, comfort, health, and pleasure. I don't have this martyr impulse. I don't think this makes me evil. I think it makes me morally average. And when you take a vast global economy built on centuries of exploitation and fill it with morally average primates who evolved to survive in small groups with limited resources, you really don't need a conspiracy to explain the results. If you want to understand the mindset of the elites, look at yourself. Billionaires are not a different species. They're
Not us,
just
guys.
people.
Not us,
often
not us. We're
broken
different.
people
Not
with
like
way
us.
too much power. When you deny the humanity of the oppressors, you also conceal the potential oppressor in yourself and in all people, even people you think of as the good guys. We are all, metaphorically, part reptile. So stop hunting for witches and Satanists and pay more attention to ordinary selfishness, ignorance, complacency, fear, envy, sadism, scapegoating, the psychology of mobs, the drive for retribution, and pay attention to how all of that interacts with power. These are the real forces behind human events, not secret schemes of shadowy supervillains. There is no epic battle between good guys and bad guys. There's humans, and there's power, and that's it. Who really controls the world? No one. There are no adults. It's just us. There is no plan, unless we make one.
Not true. Wow.
It's part of the sad thing.
Hold on. Old clip of Tucker Carlson.
I mean, this is part of the sad thing about Pat Buchanan, as far as I'm concerned. And just to restate, I mean, Pat does raise issues that I think are important. I mean, I think that, you know, the sovereignty of the American military, et cetera. I mean, these are not just crank issues. But unfortunately, Pat Buchanan raises them in a way that I think is discredited. And when attacked, he can always fall back on the line, well, the tiny cabal that controls American politics doesn't like me because I speak truth to power. This is actually, incidentally, almost verbatim what he said the other day, that I offend the plutocracy, that I'm a wanted man by the inside the Beltway people, and in every sense cast himself as a victim who is sort of a Karen Silkwood of politics, someone who's so truthful that he's being hunted down by the conspiracy that runs Washington. I mean, it's all a bit much. Maybe Pat Buchanan just says things that are kind of kooky, and that's why he's being criticized. It's perfectly valid to question America's relationship with Israel. Israel has a lobby. It's perfectly fair, as far as I'm concerned, to beat up on Israel's lobby. But I don't think that's the reason that Buchanan is being labeled an anti-Semite. It's this kind of, as I've said, this relentless bringing up topics related to Judaism. I mean, famously, Pat, always beats up on Goldman Sachs, but never Morgan Stanley. I mean, it's really hard to. There is no point at which Pat Buchanan has held a press conference and said, I really don't like the Jews. I think they're a sinister force in America. But I think, and it took me years to come to this position. I mean, I'm not throwing the term anti-Semite around. But you reach a point when you say, well, gee, here's a guy who has gone out of his way to defend Demjanjuk and other accused Nazi war criminals, who's constantly attacked Israel, who's attacked American Jews for supporting Israel unduly, who's implied that American Jews push America into wars in which non-Jews die. There really is, and again, I'm not hysterical on this subject, but I do believe that there is a pattern with Pat Buchanan of needling the Jews. Is that anti-Semitic? Yeah. I mean, after a while, you conclude it is, in some sense, anti-Semitic. I mean, Pat Buchanan obviously has a lot of personal and affectionate relationships with people who are Jewish. So on a personal level, perhaps he's not, but on a different, maybe thematic level, I think he probably is. I think that people should be allowed to have differing views on immigration. I think people should be allowed to point out the fact that there is an Israeli lobby, and yes, it's powerful, and debate the merits of that, I guess. I don't think there's, strictly speaking, anything wrong with that. But again, I think Pat Buchanan is part of the reason it's so hard to have that conversation.
Jesus.
Because he discredits it by his...
Wait, what happened to these people, man?
By his presence, because he gives people who watch him carefully the sense that he has another agenda that has to do with personal dislike, and that he believes in conspiracies, and that he believes that the Jews are this sinister, secretly organized force trying to affect American politics. And those aren't discussions I think normal people, sober people, should be having, because I think they're ludicrous.
Damn. Well, what do you want me to say? It's anti-Semitism. Got him.